Israel Adesanya is undefeated in MMA and in the UFC, winning all 9 of his fights in the middleweight division. He has practically cleaned out the division and has his sights set on 2 things: the light heavyweight title and then Jon Jones. We made a video on if and how a matchup between Izzy and Jon Jones happens. It's at the top right of this video and in the description. Before we go further, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We do a weekly podcast and talk about breaking news in the UFC and MMA. Jan Blachowicz is the current middleweight king after fighting for the vacant title against Dominic Reyes. Dom was the favorite to win that fight and earned what he already earned in many people's eyes after losing a close decision against then champion Jon Jones. Jan imposed his will against Reyes and finished the fight in the second round via TKO. Jan sports a very impressive resume of his own. He is on a 4-fight win streak against Luke Rockhold, Jacare, Corey Anderson, and now Dominic Reyes. Even with these impressive wins, does Izzy walk through Jan and move on to the Jon Jones super fight? Here's what Jan has to say about a potential matchup against Israel Adesanya.
UFC President Dana White said at the post-fight press conference following the event in Las Vegas that he spoke to Israel Adesanya and that Izzy's next fight will be against you, as Izzy, the 185 champ, moves up to 205 to go after your title. Now, when he said this, when Dana White said this, did you know, had they spoken to you already about this? Were there discussions, or were you hearing it like the rest of us for the first time?
They asked me something after my fight, in Abu Dhabi. And I say, it's no problem for me, but not now. In the March, I can fight in March with, anybody. It's no problem for me. But that I cannot fight, earlier than March. This is one problem for, my opponent. If Israel want to wait, no problem. If not, he need to fight, different challenge.
They ask you about Izzy specifically?
Yeah, they ask me, do you want to fight Izzy? I say, no problem, but in March.
Right. And my understanding was they tried to make this fight happen for December 12th because they were looking for a main event, but then you told them it doesn't work with my schedule, with my wife, the baby. Is that true? Did they come to you with that offer?
I don't know correct the date, maybe that was, because they tell that it's gonna be December, but I say too early for me. Maybe that was too early. Yeah.
I think it's a bit more complicated than that. We know what Izzy does. He's a rangy counter striker that is able to stop takedowns and has power in both his hands. Let's focus more on Jan and what he brings to the table. Jan is not a super athlete, he's not an all-world grappler, and he's definitely not the greatest striker ever. But he is an MMA veteran, high IQ fighter, and champion. Jan has faced a plethora of different fighters in his time, from short, powerful fighters to tall, lanky ones. To be fair, we can categorize Izzy as a tall, lanky fighter, to better find similar fighters that Jan has faced in the past. We found 2 examples of this. 1, Dominic Reyes, 2, Thiago Santos. These 2 choices specifically because both fighters are similar in body type and styles. What's even more interesting in these examples is that Jan has a win over Dom and a loss over Santos. What are the takeaways from these fights? Let's start with Thiago Santos. Jan could not touch Thiago in the first round, while Thiago landed 14 leg kicks on Jan, who could not close the distance between them. Jan was only 25% accurate on his significant strikes, landing 7 out of 27 attempts. Second round was a little more favorable to Jan, but he was still missing any targeted shots to the head, and really was only landing to the body and legs. Thiago, on the other hand, stuck to his game plan, leg kick mania. He landed another 10 kicks, but only landed 2 out of 16 to the head of Jan. The third round is where all the damage to Jan's legs slowed him down significantly. Thiago was now able to target and hit Jan in the head, landing 15 out of 23 of the shots, which led to a third round TKO. You could sense that Jan was going for broke and was trying to blitz Thiago out of frustration and fatigue. Keep in mind, Jan only landed 7 head strikes the entire fight. Is the formula to beat Jan revealed? Stay at distance, avoid head strikes, and land as many leg kicks as possible? Well, it was later tested by Dominic Reyes at UFC 253, but it didn't work this time. Dom came out of the first round landing 6 leg kicks, but had trouble landing anything else. Jan landed 8 of his own leg kicks and 5 brutal body shots that created a huge bruise on the side of Dominic's body. It seemed that Jan has become better at picking his shots when facing a rangy counter-striker. The second round is where Jan took over. He landed 23 significant shots and led to a TKO, while Dominic struggled to find the target for anything he threw. For whatever reason, Dom dished his game plan to stay on the outside and pick his shots, and thought he could trade shots with the Polish hammer. Jan in this fight was a lot more calm and collected. He learned in the loss to Santos. He could not let himself get frustrated and overzealous to the point where he abandons his game plan. Jan doesn't have the fastest hands, but he does have a high fighter IQ. He is able to land kicks to both the legs and body very effectively. The question that is left to answer is, how does Izzy fare against Jan? Does he do what Thiago Santos was able to do, or does Jan walk through Izzy like he did to Reyes? Can Jan really impose his will and implement a game plan for success? Jan doesn't typically grapple too much in his bouts, so this looks like it's going to be a kickboxing type match. I think Izzy will get it done in the third round of the fight. He will do what Thiago Santos was able to do to Jan. Izzy is faster and is an elite fighter who is able to avoid shots from the best fighters in the world. Jan will look to mix leg kicks and body shots to slow Izzy down, but that will be difficult to do. Dominic tried to stay on the outside and land leg kicks, but he left his body completely open the entire fight. Reyes will be a champion in the near future, but it was just not his time against Jan. He has much to develop in his game, but has the tools to become a champion. He just needs more time in the octagon. Right now, it's Izzy's time. Just avoid those shots, Izzy, and you got the championship. That's just my take. Let's see what other UFC fighters think about the fight.
I think it could be really good for our division, even if Izzy loses. Like, as long as Jan is competitive and it's a good fight, and you know he shows that he is the champion of the world for a reason. Obviously, if he beats him, that's huge for our entire division. It shows how strong we are and how good our champion is. And we've all played this round robin thing where some of us have beat this guy and he beat that guy, but I beat him. And like, so we're like, if Jan beats Izzy, we're all fairly comparable up there at the, like in the top 10. Like any kind of one of those guys could beat any other guys. So that would be phenomenal. But even if Jan loses, but it's a close fight and he's competitive and he has a good showing, I still think it still really highlights our division. I think stylistically it definitely favors Izzy. Jan is he's not crazy mobile. He does have a habit of standing in front of people. He doesn't have really dynamic head movement or footwork. He just kind of plods forward, and he has this amazing ability to like slow the fight down to his pace. He did it to Thiago Santos at the very beginning, and then Thiago was able to turn it back up, and that's where Jan got caught. But he did it to Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes fights very fast. He has a lot of movement, and Jan was able to drag him kind of into his kind of slow, methodical type of fight. If he can do that to Izzy, I think he has an opportunity to be super successful. But I just don't see Israel doing that. He's too dynamic of a striker. But Jan is really big. I've been next to both of them, and it's very clear that those guys are separated, it seems, by more than 2 weight classes. They're, Jan is a big dude. He's so big. So I don't know what that looks like. Izzy's hard to get a hold of, so maybe that size isn't really an issue. Well, I don't know if Izzy's power will translate to light heavyweight, but he's not really known as that power striker. He's kind of like Conor. He's crazy accurate, and his timing is really superior to anybody else that he fights. So I think like punching power comparably to the rest of the division, I bet Israel's not even in the top 10 as far as the actual strength of the strike. It's on the button every time, and it's in the perfect spot every single time. So I don't know. I would favor Israel just because he's been so dominant up to this point, over guys that have semi-similar styles to Jan. I think the only real thing that changes anything is his size. But he's crazy hard to get. I mean, how long we've been saying, well, if he gets taken down, we'll see what it looks like. Like, it hasn't happened yet. So I mean, he's done a phenomenal job of kind of guarding that part of his game.
Izzy and Jan, I think it's a perfect fight. If Izzy's going to go up in weight, it's the perfect fight for him to fight. Yeah. The speed, the reach, the range. I mean, sure, Jan is a big guy, but he's slower. Yeah, and he's mainly just a straight boxer.
He's a striker.
He's just a striker, but mainly a straight boxer. The kicks will be a huge factor. The speed will be a huge factor. And the style of Izzy, I think, is going to be too elusive for him.
Just a sniper comparatively. That's where I look at it. If I'm going to take a guy in a fight and I look at it and say, all right, who's going to win this? You've got to have as the guy that is Blachowicz, the straight basic boxer in MMA. Not a guy that's really known to take people down, that doesn't have that big pedigree of competition behind him and able to do it. Not that unbelievable submission guy either. A guy that wins by knockouts, ground and pound.
Mm-hmm.
Izzy's not the guy to get that win against, man. And, Izzy is, I can just tell you, man, he is so slick.
If you like the video, make sure you press a thumbs up. And if you want more, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and our podcast talking about the latest news and events in UFC and MMA. Follow our Instagram page and TikTok in the description below.